Yes, so hope we are live. Um, hello, everybody. I'm Ankruti Arora, your host for the evening. Thank you so much for tuning into our last session of Flutter Festival. We are elated to have Nikita with us today.
Hey, hi,
Um, Hi, Nikita. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, to the audience, we're elated by the response we got from our previous two sessions and hope that you all have learned, if not everything, but the basics of Flutter and what it does. To follow up on that, we have Nikita Gandhi to clear all your doubts, questions about Flutter and app dev while learning some of the best practices used in this industry. Well, to brief you about this incredible young woman, Nikita works with the developer relations team at Google as a community manager for the GDSC program in India. She's a very passionate woman and especially about Flutter. Nikita mentors the Flutter communities in India as well as write blogs in her free time. So we are looking forward to her sharing some of her learnings with us today. Fun fact about her, she speaks at different events and can make round dosas as perfect as her animations in Flutter. Well, I gladly welcome you, Nikita, to our event. We are sure with your presence, we'll be able to have a get set go in our paths of app dev and Flutter exploration. So, to begin with, one personal question I had for you, Nikita, before we get flooded with the audience questions. Could you brief us about what you do and how did you get started with this? Would love to hear some insights of your journey till now.
Sure. I'll first start with my journey with Flutter and then I'll go deep into my journey, my career journey so far. Um, Before that, my name is Nikita. I am the community manager, as Anikriti mentioned, and I look after the Google Developer Student Clubs program in India. I am from Pune and currently working in Bangalore office. I have been working with Google for 3 years now, and I have been exploring Flutter since it was in beta stage. So I have worked with Flutter for almost 3 to 4 years now. I have explored a lot of things with Flutter in the last couple of years, and I have contributed to the ecosystem in different capacities, including contributing to the code labs that are available, to giving sessions in public, and writing blogs on Medium in my free time. And I also mentor 12 plus Flutter communities. So that's my background with Flutter. How did I get started? Before joining Google, I was running my own startup and I was also working in a startup. And I was working as an Android developer, and my startup also was planning to build applications for the mobile platform. In both the cases, because I did not have a lot of, I did not have a good machine, so I did not have a high end configuration on my device, and it took some challenge for me to run Android applications on my operating system. Apart from that, it was tedious because I was getting a lot of Gradle issues while I was working on my Android app. And I was actually tired fixing those issues, and I was trying to find an alternative so that I can quickly finish my tasks. For my startup, we could quickly launch the product in the market at the same time. Being a startup, we did not have a lot of budget to hire a lot of resources. Um, the idea was to build apps that can target both the platforms, Android operating system and iPhones, at the same time. So we came to know about React Native, which was a cross-platform technology, and I explored this because I wanted an emulator on my machine itself. My phone was not connecting to my laptop, and I was looking for an option to run the app on my laptop itself. And this is where I got to know about React Native, where they had a virtual IDE, and I could run application on their playground itself. It was really interesting, and I enjoyed at least building a basic app with React Native. There is where my Flutter friend told me that, have you heard about Flutter, and we can try this. So we compared a lot about Flutter versus React Native. We actually had longer debates because we were trying to choose the best for our own startup. And We went inside the app architecture, the syntax, how quickly we can learn it, and how quickly we can build applications using either of the technologies. My friend, hailing from a core Android app development background, he did not like React Native as much and he was impressed with Flutter. Me, coming from a web developer platform background, I really like React Native because it's similar to HTML and CSS. Then these debates turned into talks. So we started doing talks at different community events where we were debating live Flutter versus React Native. That's how the conversations rolled, and we heard a lot of developers, their insights, and their feedback about both the technologies. Eventually, then we decided that Flutter wins, and we started designing our app with Flutter. Since then, I worked on production level applications for my startup using Flutter. I worked with a couple of clients, helped them develop apps using Flutter. And then ultimately, as I was learning and Flutter was in beta stage, there was not much documentation available at that point of time. So if I was stuck, I did not know how to find help, and this is what triggered me that I should start contributing to the community so that more developers like me don't feel stuck when they start exploring Flutter. So we started documenting our learnings in the form of blogs, and this is where I became a blogger as well in the meantime. And yeah, now I am with Flutter for more than 3 years. I got an opportunity to attend Flutter Live in person. I work with the Flutter team. I planned a global campaign called as 30 Days of Flutter last year. And yeah, I hope I can do more with Flutter. But recently, with Flutter festivals, I spoke at more than 50, 60 colleges about Flutter. So in just 1 month's time, it has been extensive experience for me so far.
Well, that was really insightful, I must say. I'm sure that your journey wasn't easy, but really inspiring to see that your efforts have brought you to a right place. Quite a journey, I must say, from startups to debates with colleagues to talks with community. We're sure you have had your fair share of experience with Flutter. So, yes, now let's turn towards the main aspect of the session. Audience, flood in your questions.
By the way, I hope the audience knows what Flutter is. Just in case anyone has questions, I'm happy to um, tell what is Flutter and maybe do a quick run through about what Flutter is.
To brief you about Nikita, this is the third workshop that we are conducting about our Flutter. So yes, our audience, I assume, has a good idea about what is Flutter and what it does. But yes, everybody, we are happily will happily take up any questions if you have any on the basics. So our first
Okay.
question: what do you prefer most for students or entry level developer, Flutter or Kotlin Swift?
This totally depends on your motivation on why do you want to learn either of these technologies. Is it because you're trying to find a job in the industry? Is it because you're working on a project? Is it because you want to apply for some certification that can make you add value to your resume? So for Flutter, there is no official certification from Google available as of now, but there are a lot of courses on Udemy, and they also have their own certification. And even if you don't have a certification in Flutter, your public profile matters a lot. So, contributing to GitHub, to Medium or YouTube also adds value, or Stack Overflow in that case. Um, so that is one. If you are planning to build some projects, it again depends. Are you trying to target multiple platforms? What background do you come from? Flutter has a lot of good documentation for all types of developers coming from different backgrounds, like for web developer, Android, React Native, Xamarin, and all of that. So that should not be a problem if you choose to go with Flutter. And then if you're planning to work on a project, it also depends how much time you have, how quickly you can learn a particular tech stack, and accordingly you can choose what works the best for you.
Yeah, so here my friend Shreya asks us, I'm interested in game dev. Is there any chance I can integrate and make games using Flutter?
So Flutter is not actually for game developers, but I've seen a few apps which are developed using Flutter, or few games that are developed in Flutter. The good thing about Flutter is it directly talks to your underlying operating system. So in that way, you can, if your game is trying to access a lot of hardware, the access is very, very fast using Flutter. But there are other things as well that you need to put in your game. Flutter gives a really good animation, so its user experience has supposed to be good. Flutter gives you flexibility of adding a lot of animated characters. You can draw them by yourselves, so it could be a fair opportunity to try and see how it works for you. But if not, there is Unity and any other technologies which specifically help in game development.
Okay. The next question is, what do you yourself like to write code in, if given the choice, Kotlin or Flutter?
I have not worked with Kotlin to be honest, but I have heard a lot about Jetpack Compose. So that's something I'm really interested in trying and seeing how it goes. The hype is real. So I definitely have a bias for Flutter, and I would choose Flutter because I already know. But if I had to learn something new, I'll definitely go with Kotlin.
All right. So the next question is, how can I keep my Flutter code clean? It always gets cluttered with so many widgets, and they're on press functions together on the same block. Well, I
Yeah,
feel
this
this
is
is
a
every
really
student's
nice,
plight.
correct. This is a really nice question. Thank you for asking this question. So how Flutter works is it creates a tree-like structure. There is a parent widget, and then there are children below that parent widget, or there can be a single child as well. The best way to keep it clean is make sure your code is well indented. Secondly, make sure you are putting the right functions in the right, sorry, you're adding the right widgets in the right functions. And then you have really good segmentation for your code. Don't create a lot of files because that might just confuse you in your overall application. But in a single app itself, make the logic very clear that, if a particular function is written for your first screen, in that you will have a lot of widgets. Make sure you maintain that tree like structure, do the right indentation, and it will be easier for a user to read, or yourself while you're referring back to it.
Sure, that's helpful. All right. Next question. Is there any chance we would have a full-fledged IDE for Flutter like Android Studio?
So you can do everything as an Android developer would do on Android Studio if you install Flutter on Android Studio itself. It is called Android Studio because long back they had built something that would target Android platform. But now it also supports Flutter applications and all of that hot reload, hot restart, running your application, simulator, compiling, running, all of that is possible with Android Studio for Flutter.
All right. So coming up, we have how do you look for answers in the documentation when stuck? Again, every student's plight.
Okay. Again, Mayank, this is an interesting question. Thank you for asking. So it totally depends at what stage are you stuck. For example, if you don't know at all how to customize a widget, a particular widget, for example, you want to customize a card and you're trying to look for some help over there, then what I do is just write customize card Flutter on Google. That's it. And there would be a lot of, docs or articles or videos that are already there that can help me follow steps and try customization. Another way is if I'm trying my own customizations and I'm getting specific error, then Stack Overflow is the best place to find answers. Um, so I would go to Stack Overflow, see if there is a developer who had similar problem in the past and how they got help from the same place. Otherwise, if it's a new question, go ahead, post it on Slack, Stack Overflow, and then you may find answers to your questions.
Sure. That was really helpful, Nikita. I'm sure we'll keep this in mind. Next up, I wanted to know what does Google expect from a Flutter developer, considering they already have Kotlin, Android Studio to develop apps.
I'm not honestly sure about this question on what does Google expect. I mean, are you planning to get hired as a developer at Google as a Flutter developer? And is it that you're asking what would be your interview like? Or, I mean, why would Google want you to choose Flutter if there is already Kotlin and Android Studio? I'm not sure about this question, Arya. If you could share more details to this question, we can come back to it again.
Sure, we'll wait for a follow up, Arya. Next up, how do I convert a small project that I have into a deployment over Play Store?
Okay, Dharmin, again, I'm really happy there are so many interesting questions coming in and they are really unique. So, if you have a small project and you think you want more users to try and test your application, you can always go ahead and deploy it on Play Store. Now, if you're asking what are the steps I need to follow to deploy it on Play Store, then a short answer is you need to release your application. You would get a APK file that you need to go ahead and deploy on the Play Store console. You need a developer account on Play Store, pay some minimal fees so that you can publish your apps on Play Store. And if you are asking how do I make my app robust enough so that I can be Play Store ready, it totally depends on how you can attract users to your application. What are the features you think that would attract a user to use your application? Focus on that, and then you can start implementing those, and then you are ready to deploy it on Play Store.
Yes, so we hope that your project gets deployed over Play Store and we use it, Dharmin. Next up, how can one get started contributing to Flutter repos?
So, yeah, again, I am really enjoying the questions so far. So if you were to contribute to the Flutter repository, the GitHub repository is open for everyone who's interested in contributing. So you can just search for Flutter on GitHub, and there you can see a lot of open issues that are there. You can choose which one of those you want to solve, and you can contribute to the Flutter repository. But then there are other ways you can contribute. There are like packages on pub.dev. You can contribute to those. A few libraries have a special call out. I need help to make this more integrated, like to make it more complete and robust. So you can also contribute to those repositories on GitHub.
All right. Next up, we have yes. What would be more helpful to a beginner working on a project of our own or learning by contributing to repos?
I think this question is a little tricky. It totally depends on you. On what would be more helpful to you, on how you learn, or how you prefer to learn. Some of them like learning by themselves, taking some assignments for themselves and contributing, completing those, and feeling more confident day by day as you complete those assignments. For some, they are looking for problems to solve, but they don't know what problem to solve. So you may want to go to the repos which are open, are looking for some help, have open issues raised already, so you can solve for those and feel confident. But at the start, I think you should do something by yourself and then go ahead to basically solve others' problems. So it's like solve your own problems first and then solve problems for the rest.
Yes, totally agreed. Next up, job wise, what is the scope for a Flutter enthusiast slash developer?
So a lot of startups and enterprises are using Flutter. So there's a good opportunity for you to get hired in those startups and enterprises. So yeah, I mean, there are more than 2 million apps on Play Store which are developed using Flutter. So the opportunity is even more bigger now.
Good to know. Next up, some advice for upcoming developers or those who are trying to start working in Flutter.
Okay, for those who are beginner, one thing I would say is Flutter is growing a lot. You may feel overwhelmed to understand, what you need to prioritize and learn, and when you're job ready. My suggestion to all of you would be uh, keep learning every day, but that doesn't stop you from applying to different opportunities that are there, or that doesn't stop you from building a project using Flutter. The more you do, the more you're going to get back in return. So, more projects you have to showcase, more stronger portfolio you're building for yourself. The more you explore with Flutter, the more you are able to speak about in your interviews. So don't stop exploring this, but don't even feel underconfident because it has grown immensely in the last couple of years. And you cannot become an expert in few months, but you can definitely understand the basics that can help you represent yourself as a Flutter developer in the market.
So, yes, exploration is the key.
It is.
Okay. So, I would like to ask a question myself. What would you prefer, web dev versus mobile development?
Um, So, as a user, I usually prefer going to websites than installing apps on my phones because I like to keep my phone really clean and have only those basic applications that I use on a regular basis. But otherwise, I really like developing apps for mobile platform because I have had an incredible journey in the last couple of years with mobile app development. So yeah, a little bit biased towards mobile app development.
All right. Next up, do you know of any open source organizations whose main source code is in Flutter?
There would be a lot of them under GSOC, Google Summer of Code. You may want to go to the website and see which companies are specifically targeting Flutter and are also open source. So yeah, go ahead and try to explore GSOC. And I know there is good ventures, very good ventures, not good ventures, very good ventures who have few repositories which are open and developers can take benefit out of it.
All right. I think the audience is tired and asking questions.
Yeah,
Audience,
but
come on, we
there
need more questions. You all were really excited. Okay, we got one. For someone who is just average at 2, 3 programming languages, what advice would you give to adapt to a new language such as Dart?
So, if you are an average, you cannot become an expert in any of the technologies in a small period of time. I'm assuming you all are students and you can't just become an expert in a year or two. And the way you become an expert in programming is not by learning the syntax. You become an expert by learning the logic. So once you know how array functions, for example, or you know what is stack, or you know how to implement a heap sort algorithm in a particular language, you can definitely Google the syntax and implement the same in another language. So, if you want to know more about that, I would suggest understand how object oriented programming works and try to implement a few algorithms, few functions, few things with Dart as a part of object oriented programming. And I'm sure that would give you the confidence to understand what Dart is and then start implementing things in Flutter.
Perfect. Okay, next up, I think we have how important is learning design for a beginner level developer for making Flutter applications?
You don't have to be a designer and developer at the same time. You can either be a designer or you can be a developer. The job of the designer is to give you designs. The job of a developer is to make that come into reality. So you don't have to be a designer to be a Flutter developer.
True. Okay, then we have is light mode on IDEs acceptable?
Mm, yeah, it is acceptable.
All right. Next up, how do you keep your sanity while coding?
Yeah, I mean, I have my days when I wanted to throw my laptop from the 11th floor, but I just saved my laptop, I would say, and myself from getting scolded by my parents. Sometimes it gets frustrating when you don't solve a bug or you're not unable to resolve a bug for a very long time. But as soon as it's solved, it's even more accomplishing. So I would say wait for that feeling of, feeling accomplished than just dumping your laptop. And that's how I maintain my sanity. And one thing is I listen to music while I'm coding so that, I am always in a good mood.
We'll keep that in mind next time when we get angry. All right. So, any more questions, audience? All right, I feel this is it. Thank you so much for tuning with us, Nikita. I'm sure all of us are taking back a lot of learnings from this session. We would love to meet you in person in the future. Hope you had a good time, as good as what we had. Thank you, everybody. You were a lovely audience. And if you liked our session today and would love to join in for further more announcements or updates, kindly subscribe to our channel at DSC IIIT Bangalore. We are also available on Instagram at gdsc.iitb as well as on LinkedIn. Well, last but not the least, as a Google Campus Ambassador, I would take this opportunity to announce our very own social media handle on Instagram and Twitter. So I hope to see you all there. Thank you once again and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.